And now, the First Alert Storm Team, live from the 13 Now digital desk. This is Tropic Topics, sponsored by Peden Heating and Air Conditioning and Mariana Toyota.
Welcome to a special edition of Tropic Topics. We're certainly going to be talking about the tropical conditions as well as our current rain setup, because that is really the main focus of our forecast here locally and the greatest impact to our area, at least semi-tropical, because we are going to be seeing tropical moisture. No, we're not getting a tropical low or a tropical storm, but we are talking about plenty of moisture being streamed in from the tropics, the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, even the deep tropics, and the connection with this, which is why we are concerned about the potential for very heavy rainfall. Certainly some are going to be far wetter over the coming days than others, and we'll get into that as we do. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, make sure to throw them in those comment sections from wherever you are watching. We've got them all pulled up, so we will get to those questions as fast as we can. But we're going to start things off by talking about our current setup, and then we will talk about the tropical activity that is out there. And we do have post-tropical storm Danielle. We have Hurricane Earl, both of them not threats to the U.S., but certainly are going to impact the weather, at least indirectly, and we'll talk about the connections with that as well. And there's a couple other waves that we are watching that potentially could turn into some kind of development down the road. Too early to say exactly how those could impact the U.S., if at all. Right now, tropics look fairly good, so that is some good news to put some ease into your mind. But let's go into what we're dealing with, and what we've got is the radar up right now, and we were last couple of days talking about how today was going to be transition day. It was going to be the day where we'd still see mostly just pop-up activity, but we were going to get that moisture to start streaming in, and that has been checkmark in both boxes there for the forecast. The majority of the shower and thunderstorm activity, and Spencer, if you want to go to the full screen here, the majority of the shower and thunderstorm activity, it really is through Alabama and the western half of the area at this point in time. So back across this area, that's where we're seeing the majority of the shower and thunderstorm activity at the moment, but you'll notice outflow boundaries kind of ping-ponging around there, and relatively clear conditions off to the east. So that's where we're seeing drying conditions at the moment. Of course, that's where I'm talking about over here. That's where we had convection this morning. That's where we had that shower and thunderstorm activity as well. And I do expect that we will see pop-up activity on that side of the map as well through the rest of this evening. We're going to hold on to a 50 to 60% chance of rain as we do go through the rest of this evening into the overnight hours. So while you may have been relatively dry to this point, we're certainly going to continue to talk about the chance of pop-up shower and thunderstorm activity. And this is the reason why. So as we're looking here at the tropics, you can actually see hurricanes on both sides of the United States. So that is Earl over here to the right of the screen. That's Hurricane Earl. And then we've got Hurricane K down in the Baja of California, down there as well. So in between, we're wedged in between that two tropical activity, and what we're seeing is, if you look closely here, which is why I wanted to show this shot, is the start of this setup. So no, we're not looking at a tropical low, but we are going to be talking about a cutoff low, and what you got here is, if you pay really close attention, you can see the swirl right there, and this is right where we're going to see that area of low pressure develop. So what does that mean for us? Well, unfortunately, it means that we're going to be talking about plenty of tropical moisture, and you can see that deep connection to moisture being slung into the area right there just off to our east. And where that arrow is pointed, that's probably where we're going to see the heaviest and highest accumulations of rainfall total, because that is where that moisture is pointed toward. So this nice little swirl back through here is what's going to be slingshotting that moisture in, and you can actually tell the tropical connection with both Earl and K here. So you can see the ridge that is off around Earl, and you can see the trough that has dug in behind K. So this tropical string of moisture showing up on both sides of that, and in the middle, that's right where we are. And unfortunately, because you do have high pressure that is off to our north, right through here. So we've got high pressure there, and we've got high pressure here. And remember, high pressure, you've got clockwise flow, and you've got clockwise flow. And so right in the middle, you have streaming north, plenty of moisture. And that's really why we've been talking about this setup for several days. And there's still a lot of unknowns, and there will continue to be unknowns until we're really in event starting tomorrow, going into Saturday as well, just because we're going to be, unfortunately, talking about pop-up thunderstorms that potentially could train across the area. And with that, that's where the concern for flash flooding comes in. So you can see the tropical activity, and just as a little side note here for Hurricane K, it is going to run up toward the Southern California coast. Now, the water in the Pacific is much, 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 much colder than the water in the Atlantic. So K is going to be turning extratropical or post-tropical as it does approach California. It may hold onto that warm core right until it gets there, and it will fade as it's going in, but it is going to throw a lot of moisture into Southern California, about 3 to 5 inches of rain expected across the Baja of California and into Southern California. And their soil is not like ours. It is dry, it is dusty, and the water just runs off. So 3 to 5 inches of rain there is going to cause a lot of flooding issues. Here, 3 to 5 inches of rain, which is coincidentally about what we're forecasting over the next couple of days. It really doesn't do a whole lot, but if you get 3 to 5 inches of rain in an hour, then you've got flash flooding to deal with. And so that's what we're concerned about for us. But yeah, that little interesting note there on California as well. And again, if you got any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, stuff that you want me to answer along the way, make sure you are throwing them in the comments section. I see Gary Glover has joined us, as well as Christina Gardner. Hello to all of them. And of course, let's dive into our future cast here. So we've got the frontal boundary draped to our south. We've got the area of low pressure that is developing. That's going to continue to hang out there through our Friday, and you just see the numerous showers and thunderstorms pulling in. As it does retrograde to the west, concern is that we may see a line of heavier thunderstorms develop just off to our south and then just train in the same areas over and over again. And then by the time we get into Monday, check that out. This is actually going to be our first real traditional cold front coming in, and thankfully that low pressure system will be cut off and moving toward the Great Lakes. So we're actually going to talk about some drier air. Yeah, I'm talking about drier air possible by Tuesday and Wednesday. We might even see our first inland areas diving down into the mid 60s for overnight lows by the time we head into the end of next week. So it's very possible. Now, GFS is a little more proactive in driving in this drier air next week as opposed to the Euro, which just kind of flattens things out and keeps the moisture close to the coast, close enough that I don't think we'd be talking about temperatures being able to take that kind of dive for inland areas. But certainly the potential to dry out is there. So there is good news on the horizon. It's not just going to be wet forever. We are talking about the potential that we will see drying conditions. So this is our future cast. I'm going to try to break this down as cleanly as possible for you. Doing a pretty good job showing where the shower and thunderstorm activity is right now. And notice it's nice and clear off to the east. But as we go through the rest of this evening, you see that pop-up activity right along the coast. I do expect that we're going to see fairly similar conditions to that. Notice the wind out of the north and east over land, out of the south and east over water. Kind of develops a pseudo front right along the coastline. And watch the activity as we get into and through the day on Friday. We'll be talking about showers and thunderstorms developing, working along that frontal boundary, and then wherever we get that convergence, our modeling showing it happening across Bay County, Walton County, Washington County, and into Holmes County. Certainly could be further east. It could be further west. So this is the major unknown to the forecast, is just where do we get that convective banding basically to show up around this low pressure, and where does it just stay? So our future cast showing that and then sliding off to the east. And I have a pause point here at 7 p.m. because if you guys know anything about the local area, you know that 7 o'clock, we've got the local football games going on for Friday night. So our future cast at least is semi-optimistic that we will get a little dry period here, and certainly thunderstorms may be out of the area. So it is quite possible, while the fields will be wet and the seats will be wet, things like that, that we may get these football games in if we do get a dry period like this. Again, this is just a model run, so this is not exactly what's going to happen, but it's giving you an idea, a simulation of the conditions that will be present and what possibly could come from that. So certainly good idea to to keep the rain gear handy and keep all of the rain in mind. As we go into Friday night, we turn into more of a frontal boundary right along the coast as that boundary continues to stay stalled there. So I think coastal areas are going to continue to see the threat of rain showers and thunderstorms through our Friday night into Saturday morning. And then again on Saturday, we're going to see this moisture continue to stream across the area. Again, notice the consistency with the rain through the Forgotten coastline and off to our east. That's where the overall flood threat remains. Now further off to the west, Bay County, Walton County, Washington County, Holmes County, it's going to be more spotty, hit and miss activity. It's not going to be as consistent, but that's also where we could see these thunderstorms develop and train. It just depends on where convective banding sets up. So as we get into Saturday afternoon, we're still going to be seeing those showers and thunderstorms. So what does this look like rainfall total-wise? Well, just based off of that futurecast model, you can see exactly what is projected. Some areas not seeing a whole lot, some areas seeing a whole lot. Now, with this setup, with that last run, it shows 5 inches of rain possibly in Panama City. That is very, very possible. Also note, Apalachicola, it only shows about 1 inch of rain, and then 4.3 inches in Tallahassee. So if you smooth all of this out, what does it really turn into forecast-wise? Well, this is what I think we're actually going to be seeing. So from Tallahassee to Apalachicola, probably a general 2 to 4, 3 to 5. Bluntstown to Panama City, probably a general 2 to 4 inches of rain. And then along I-10, Mariana and Definiak Springs, the majority of your rain is going to be coming from that convective pop-up, hit-and-miss shower and thunderstorm activity. So 1 to 3. This is going through Sunday morning. That's when, or rather through Monday morning, this is the totals that we'll be seeing. Now, thunderstorms, models do a terrible job predicting thunderstorms and thunderstorm output. Thunderstorms can easily drop 1 to 3 inches of rain in an hour. So it's very possible that our locations pick up double the numbers here. So whatever you're seeing there in that range, if you get under one of those convective bands and you get into that thunderstorm activity, you could easily see 3 to 5 or 4 to 6 or 4 to 8 in Panama City. We could easily see 6 to 10 in Apalachicola. We could easily see 4 to 8 in Tallahassee. So that's where the flash flooding threat really comes from, and why we have been so concerned about this potential here is because there is the potential for heavy rain. That doesn't mean everyone's going to see it, as obviously just shown there on the Futurecast. Not everyone is going to be seeing all of the heavy rain, but certainly the possibility of that heavy rain is definitely there. So that's basically it for our current rain setup. Again, if you got any questions on any of that, put them in the comments section. We've got all the comment sections up. If you see any questions or anything that I missed, go ahead and throw them in there. We will get to them at the end. I am going to go into the tropics here. I do see Sarah Henson said I thought it was going to rain today. And yeah, our rain chances are increasing throughout the day today. So we actually started out this morning with just a 30% chance of rain, and we're increasing it to 60% as we do go through the rest of today into tonight. So again, keep in mind what rain chances are. We're saying it's confidence times coverage. We're highly confident that we're going to get rain over the next couple of days, so that basically boils down to coverage. So 60% means 60% of the area should see rain at some point in time throughout the day. Rain chances has nothing to do with totals or duration of rain. It just has to do with the fact whether you're seeing raindrops at your location. That's all rain chances covers. So when we're talking about that 60%, we're saying 60% of the area will be wet at some point in time. That also means that 40% of the area is going to be completely dry and won't see any raindrops. So keep that in mind when you're talking about rain chances. That's where watching the forecast comes in handy, because you get our idea of what the forecast is going to be. If we're saying it's going to rain all day, or we're saying rain chances are around all day, or we're saying hit and miss showers and thunderstorms, well, you can bet that you're probably going to get some dry conditions. So that's where we're at on the rest of today. But again, I do expect pop-up activity through the rest of this evening. I am expecting that shower and thunderstorm activity, especially along the coast, to fill in overnight tonight. So good question there, Sarah. Again, any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that, just make sure that you're throwing them in there, and I will get to them as soon as I can. So let's go into the tropics here and talk about what's going on. We have plenty of warm water. This gets talked about quite a bit as far as ocean heat content. Tropical systems, they work off of warm water. So you need heat fluxes. You need that warm water availability. And anything over 80 degrees, can spawn tropical systems. So that's all you need is 80-degree water temperature. Anything warmer than that, certainly once you start getting up into the higher 80s, you're talking about more availability of heat flux and the potential for those storms to strengthen rapidly. Now, obviously, warm water is just warm water if you don't have a storm. And so far this year, the Gulf has been very warm. We haven't had any storms, so the storm systems haven't been able to take advantage of the warm water, which is why I always say this when people are saying, we're going to have an active year, the water's on fire. Okay, well, that doesn't talk about the dry air, the shear, or the weather pattern that's in place, and that certainly has kept things relatively calm, and the weather pattern in general has kept everything out in the Atlantic. So we do have two systems out there at this point in time, but they are way out in the Atlantic and non-threats to the U.S., so the warm water in the Gulf, not doing anything for them at this point in time. So that's where we are at this moment in time in the Gulf of Mexico. Warm water certainly in place. Talking of dry air, we've got plenty of it still, and it doesn't look to be going anywhere anytime soon. So these systems coming off the coast of Africa, they're going to continue to have to deal with all of this dry air. We refer to this as Saharan dust as SAL. So it is the Saharan dust layer. That's why it gets that abbreviation SAL. And you see it just concentrated right across the main development region, which is from the coast of Africa through the Caribbean. That's where the majority of our tropical activity happens, especially the tropical activity that's going to affect the U.S. The tropical activity that has happened as of late has been subtropics. Well, our subtropics, our wind is out of the west. So anything that develops in the subtropics, most likely not going to touch the U.S. Honestly, that's where I want my tropical systems. I want them up into the Atlantic in the subtropics so that they are going off into the North Atlantic and getting into the overall jet stream and not impacting the U.S. So if we're going to have an active year, let them all spawn in the subtropics. I don't care if we go through 35 storms if we get them all in the subtropics. That means very little impact to the U.S. whatsoever. So lots of dry air. That's going to continue. That's certainly good signs as we go through the next 7 to 10 days, especially with the two waves that are out there. And you can see post-tropical Danielle way up there on the top of the screen. You can also see the new wave, which is heavily sheared and being impacted by dry air. The center, a closed low center. So typically when you get a closed low center, you get a named storm. But you need convection wrapped around the center for 12 hours for them to give it a named storm on most occasions. And in this case, the center of the storm is completely exposed. So unless there can be some convection wrapped around that center, it may never get a name because it is going to be sheared apart by Earl, which you see there on the left hand of the screen. And we have a new wave coming off the coast of Africa. They're giving it a low chance of developing. Models are unsure how it handles all the dry air that is to its north and to its west, as well as the overall pattern and how much shear that is going to be in front of it as well. So long-term future of the new tropical wave out there still very unknown at this point in time. And again, all the tropical activity that we have out there at this point, not a threat to the U.S. So certainly good things to come from that. Post-tropical Danielle, this was supposed to be, let's see if I can move the map with my thing. No, let's clear that out because I definitely got the viewpoint wrong here. I'm going to go back. Let's get rid of the whiteboard and then let's see. Hey, looky there. A stylus is coming in handy. Who knew that, Spencer? Come on. So there we go. Now we're up to post-tropical storm Danielle. It is a 65-mile-per-hour storm. All the post-tropical means that it has lost its warm core. So it's no longer a completely warm core system. It still basically has all of the characteristics of a tropical system. It's just not warm core. So therefore it is not tropical anymore at this point in time. So it's no more interesting, at least in the weather world, than just a big, broad synoptic low. And as this continues to move on, it's going to make a little loop-de-loop as it is becoming post-tropical, and then it's going to move off to the east pretty rapidly, and eventually this may even run its core into Spain down the road, which is quite interesting. Not all that uncommon, especially with tropical activity that does manage to get into that area. But again, post-tropical at this point in time, so nothing more than just a big synoptic low moving in. How about Hurricane Earl? Well, Earl is a Category 2. It is the first Category 2 of the season. I certainly wouldn't have bet that going into this season that we would be this late in the season and getting our first Category 2, but hey, I will take it. It is moving off to the north-northeast at 13 miles per hour, max winds at 105, and the pressure down to 965, and it is well on its way to potentially becoming the first major of the year. And the interesting thing note here is if this does spin up to a Category 4 in the area that it is projected to in the subtropics, this will be the first Category 4 to be in that area ever. So that kind of speaks to the interesting setup that is there. This is really getting a lot of its energy from jet dynamics, so more subtropical characteristics. But it also speaks to the fact of how warm the subtropics are, which is an interesting point into this year's weather and just in general the tropical activity. The subtropics are really warm. The subtropics just north of the main development region, they're quite anomalously cool on both sides of the main development region, and the main development region is really warm. So honestly, if you go back and watch the last Tropic Topics we did, I talked about how that cool sea surface temperature there surrounding the main development is leading to a lot of stability across the main development region, which is why we're just not seeing storms being able to get going there because you've got this cool, stable air that is aloft over warm water. So these storms try to go up, it hits the cap of that cooler air, and then those storms just collapse. So they're just not able to convect, as opposed to our subtropical systems here that running up in the subtropics, running over warm water, and don't have that issue because that's where they're going. So again, if this is where we're going to get storms in the future, I'm all for it because they'll be moving away from the U.S. because we got winds out of the west in the subtropics as opposed to out of the east, which pushes them toward the U.S. So Earl, not an issue for the U.S. as it will eventually become extratropical, post-tropical, whatever you want to call it, as it rounds out around Nova Scotia up there and into the northern Atlantic. And again, we are just about peak season. So peak, we are past halfway at this point in time. So if you are an optimistic person, you would say we are going downhill. September 10th, which happens to be tomorrow? Saturday, yeah. Got mixed up on my days. So, which happens to be Saturday. That is peak season. So no surprise that we have two waves in the Atlantic and two named systems. Well, really one because Danielle doesn't count anymore toward ACE. So what one, and possibly by Saturday, maybe a major. So no surprise that goes right along with our climatological average. It's exactly where you would expect us to have all of the tropical activity. And then you note the second peak in October 20th. That is really the winding down portion of the season. Certainly you can have a tropical system just about any point in time. Again, all you need is 80-degree water temperature. So you can have it throughout at any point in time throughout the year. But in general, most of our activity comes from June 1st to November, the end of November, which is why that is dubbed hurricane season. So yeah, we're going to be rounding out past peak season, and thankfully at the current moment, not dealing with a whole lot of activity, at least no threats to the U.S. at this point. So again, that takes us back to our heavy rain setup over the coming days. And yeah, we got an 80 to 70% chance of rain for our Friday and our Saturday. Saturday may, in fact, have to trend up based on the latest modeling I talked about yesterday, the potential for us to get dry slotted. The last couple of models not showing that potential as much anymore. So it looks likely that we're going to have showers and thunderstorms around much of the day on Saturday. The Euro starts to clear us out much earlier on Sunday. The GFS keeps shower and thunderstorm activity throughout the day on Sunday, which is why the rain chances there are just at 60%. They honestly could be much higher than that, but the confidence is lower that we're going to see those shower and thunderstorm activity, which is why we do have it at 60%. And then you'll note Wednesday and Thursday, maybe just a stray shower or thunderstorm as that drier air does come in. Inland areas looking very, very similar. So that's going to do it for what I had to talk about. I know I talked quite a long time, and a lot of you guys held in there. I appreciate you sticking with me. But certainly the questions, Spencer, you got any? Yes. Is there going to be any severe weather with the thunderstorm activity? Gloria, great question. So tomorrow afternoon, we are under a marginal risk for severe weather. So that means about a 2% risk of severe weather. What do I mean by 2%? I'm saying that there is a 2% chance of severe weather within 15 or 20 miles of your location. So it is low. The main threat with any potential severe weather tomorrow is going to be, unfortunately, quick spin up brief tornadoes. So we've already seen it verified today across the peninsula. They've had a couple of tornado warnings down there around Tampa. So it is very possible that we're going to have these thunderstorms if they are able to mature enough, meaning we get enough heating of the day that we get these thunderstorms to develop large enough that we get them to spin. So the potential is there for isolated tornadoes through the day tomorrow. The greatest risk is going to come Friday afternoon and evening. Coincidentally, you saw in our futurecast Friday afternoon and evening, our futurecast showing it dry across the area. So hopefully that's what happens. And when we have the ingredients to be able to spin these thunderstorms, there's no thunderstorms. That would be fantastic. But yes, there is a low chance of severe weather for our Friday. So good question there. I think that answers the other one because I saw severe weather Southport. So I think that answers that question as well. Let's see here. Southport has opening day baseball Saturday from 10 to 2. Do you think it will be a rain out? Not looking good right now. No, it's not looking good. I'm not sure that it's necessarily going to be raining at that time, but certainly we're going to have shower and thunderstorm activity throughout the day. Hit and miss on Friday, and we certainly could have some very heavy rainfall Friday. Saturday, we're going to have hit and miss activity as well, but right now it looks more hit than miss, at least with the latest modeling, with moisture coming on in, so we may have relatively consistent rain. Friday may be more of the convective heavy rain, meaning that we get bursts of heavy rain from thunderstorms over isolated areas, and Saturday may be more widespread light moderate rain. At least that's the way the models have kind of trended. So yeah, I think the fields are going to be wet. I think you're going to have to get very, very lucky on Saturday to get baseball in, just because of how wet the fields are probably going to be. So sorry, but I think, is it possible to get lucky? Sure, but it's not in the odds right now to be lucky for baseball on Saturday. So good question there, Spencer. What else you got?
On your future cast, it looked like the time for football from about 7 to 11 tomorrow, everything took a break. How likely is that to change? And do you think there will be lightning involved in those storms?
Good question. So let me go back to Futurecast. Again, when we were showing Futurecast, we're talking about the potential. The model's basically taking the current setup and saying that this is what's possible. So Futurecast is just a representation of what is possible. Obviously, there are many number of iterations that could possibly come from the current setup and our overall structure and what we have in place, but the model's showing the best guess. So we get 4 high-res models every day, 0Z, 6Z, 12Z, and 18Z. So we're coming up on 18Z. We'll get the new run in. This is the 12Z, so this is from noon today, showing what the representation over the next 48 hours. And certainly we will see a slight difference in the next model run as opposed to what we have here. But consistently, what we have seen is the models showing rounds of showers and thunderstorms working across the area, and consistently the models have shown the potential for bands or convective bands to set up. So I'll put this back in motion here in case you missed it. So scattered activity through the rest of today. We'll hold on to the rain chances overnight tonight. The highest rain chances tonight are going to be along the coast, and then as we go into and through the day tomorrow, watch the convective banding, and I'll pause it when we get that banding set up, and I'll try to explain a little bit more of what I mean by that. As we go through the day on Friday, you see the shower and thunderstorm activity, and then voila, there is the convective banding that I'm talking about. So let me go ahead and get the whiteboard going so that I can draw here and show you this. So this is what I'm talking about. Let's pick orange and we'll go with blue again. So this is banding. So that's what I'm talking about. Notice all of the convergence here with our streaming arrows. And again, showing streaming arrows. And then you see on the backside here, the wind going out of that direction. So what we've got is basically a closed low here, like that. So that's what we got, saying that there could be a low right there at the surface. So that brings all that wind and throws it into that area that's circled right there. So this could easily be over here, or it could be over here, and it all depends on where that low pressure system ends up. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to end up right there, and that doesn't necessarily mean that that convection is going to end up right there. It certainly could shift, but this is the potential of what we're going to be talking about, or the potential of what we could see for the day tomorrow and then again on Saturday. So widespread showers and thunderstorms are likely, but as shown right here, if things do play out that way, while everything is going to be really, really wet, 7 o'clock rolls around, we got cloud cover around, it's certainly humid, and we've got moisture in the area, but we don't have any storms to talk about, we don't have any rain. So if things do play out that way, we certainly could end up getting the football games in. Again, fields will be very sloppy, and you're probably going to see a really strong running game because the routes run are going to be hit and miss by any of your wide receivers because they're going to be running on some pretty wet fields. So yeah, I would say if you were a betting person, don't bet on high school games. But if you are a betting person, bet on the teams that have the running game to win. Yeah, so that's where we are with that. Good question there, Spencer. I don't know if that was a you question or somebody else, but that was a good one.
Any heavy lightning expected?
Yeah, I think the lightning is going to be mostly with storms that develop in the afternoon, and it's going to depend on how much dry weather we get between these rounds. If we have more consistent rain, then it's probably elevated and we see less lightning activity. If we get breaks like what our model is showing here, whenever we get those heavier downpours to develop, we'll probably get some lightning strikes out of that. I don't think we're going to see a ton of lightning, certainly not like the summer thunderstorms we've had over the last couple of weeks where every thunderstorm seems to be producing crazy amounts of lightning. I don't think that that's going to be the case. These are going to be mostly low topped, which means that they're not going to be super high elevated. And whenever you have low top storms, you don't really get that cape, the available energy into the storm. So you don't see all of that lightning activity. So I think we will have lightning strikes, certainly, but I don't think we're going to be talking about a ton of lightning across the area. So good question there. What else? We got anything else? I'm not getting any questions here. So again, if you got any questions, anything like that, go ahead and throw them into the comments. Trying to do it. Sandy, sorry you just cut your grass, but you probably have to cut it again next week. But hey, some drier weather's on the way, so good question there. Matthew, I think I answered your question, right? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you were the one asking about Southport. Well, I'm hopeful, man. Yeah, I'm just giving a forecast of what's most likely to happen. The things can always play out better. They can always play out worse. So we can certainly hope that my forecast is incorrect and things turn out much, much drier. That would be fantastic. But, I'm just trying to give you a heads up on what's most likely. I mean, that's what my job is. So good question there. I think we just answered that. Kathy asked, is lightning coming today? Yeah, I mean, for the most part, we're seeing a lot of the activity out there. Let me go back to the radar. A lot of the activity at this point in time is off to the west, and we shouldn't see a ton more as we go through the rest of this evening, but we are still going to be talking about pop-up activity. So here's the radar as we see it right now, and you notice a lot of that shower and thunderstorm activity is off to the west. There are a couple outflow boundaries trying to come back toward us, and those outflow boundaries certainly could spur more showers and storms. And I do think that we are going to be talking about, let me get out of the whiteboard. I was trying to zoom out. Sorry, y'all. This is, one of the first times that I've used this. Oh, really? It's not going to let me zoom out? There we go. Looky there. Learning new tricks all the time. So zooming out here, you can see the moisture that is off to our south, and we're going to continue to spin moisture in our direction. Eventually, that stuff is going to be coming out of the southeast and toward the panhandle. And as that happens, that's where we should see that second surge of moisture. So we talked about this through much of this week, that today was going to be transition day. It was going to be the day where the moisture starts to come in. That certainly wasn't going to be a washout type of day, but we were going to have these pop-up showers and storms. And we certainly do have plenty of storms out there. Most of them are off along I-10 or further off to the west, but we do have that shower and thunderstorm activity out there. We had it to the east earlier, and now we're seeing it off to the west. So we're going to continue to hold on those rain chances. Again, rain chances now are at 50 and 60%. We're going to hold on to 50 and 60% through the overnight hours. So good question there as well. I think that's going to do it. I'm not seeing anything else as far as questions go. So we're going to wrap it up right there. Make sure you are watching at 5, 6, and 10 tonight, as we will be talking more about the heavy rain setup and the potential for what we can see. And of course, you saw the 12Z models there. So as we get into the newscast, I'll have the 18Z. So new information will be coming in. And then again, later tonight, we'll have more new information. So make sure you are checking back. And certainly as we're in it tomorrow, we'll be talking about the possibility of getting those football games in, hopefully, and maybe even getting the baseball games in Southport. That would be great if that were to happen, but things do certainly look wet. So make sure that you got the Storm Track 13 app handy, and that way you can track along those showers and storms. You'll get that information. I use it daily. I know you think that I'm lying to you, that this is just a corporate pitch, and it is a corporate pitch. They do want me to push this on you guys, but I do use it because it's useful. So if it wasn't useful, I wouldn't push it as hard as I do, because I get notifications, and I probably got 3 or 4 notifications while just sitting here of lightning in such and such area, or a storm is approaching such and such area. And that's really where it is very, very useful, because you could be sitting on the beach, you get a notification, and voila, now you know that you need to head to your car because you got a storm coming in your direction. You don't have to wait until you hear thunder, because you might not hear it at the beach. The waves might be too loud. You might have your music if you're like me, and you might just not hear the thunder. So certainly that's where it comes in handy. Or if you're out in the river, or you're at the springs, anything like that, those are always good to get notifications ahead of time before you're stuck in it. And certainly going to football games, things like that can also come in handy with shower and thunderstorm activity in the area, and is certainly expected through the day tomorrow. So keep it there. Get the Storm Track 13 app if you don't already have it. And certainly we'll continue to update you as much as possible. Well, again, we're doing Tropic Topics a little differently this year. We're trying to give you the information when the information is necessary. I think as long as we have tropical activity in the Atlantic, we'll continue to do these once a week. So just based off of the current forecast, I'm still expecting that Earl will unfortunately still be in the Atlantic throughout next week. So whether it's me or Kristen or Grace, we will probably try to come to you again at some point in time next week. So be on the lookout for that as well. But until the 5 o'clock, I'll see you then.
Thank you for watching Tropic Topics, sponsored by Peden Heating and Air Conditioning and Marietta Toyota. Be sure to download the Storm Track 13 app today to stay up to date with all of the latest weather information. For more local news, weather, sports, and more, visit mypanhandle.com.